Ladies and gentlemen, George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelic.
In the 1970s, if you wanted to go to a wild and elaborate concert, you went to a Parliament Funkadelic show. Parliament and Funkadelic are two American funk music groups formed by legendary producer and singer George Clinton. If that name doesn't sound familiar to you, then you may better know him from some of his songs.
Bow wow wow, yippee yo, yippee yay, bow wow, yippee yo, yippee yay. Hickory dickory dock, he ain't about to be plucked. Too groovy for gravy. Boy was in need, yeah. The girl's a freak, the girl never misses a beat, yeah, yeah. Yes.
Since both bands were formed by the same person, Parliament and Funkadelic would often tour and perform together, so the overall collective is called P-Funk. Both Parliament and Funkadelic had very psychedelic, futuristic themes and imagery, but Parliament especially leaned into the sci-fi genre. In late 1975, their fourth album, Mothership Connection, introduced the basis of what would become Parliament's trademark lore. The Mothership was an intergalactic spacecraft manned by Starchild, who was played by George Clinton. Starchild and other characters, also played by George Clinton, would speak on the record to the listener as if they were listening to a radio show.
Welcome to station WEFUNK, better known as We Funk, or deeper still, the Mothership Connection, home of the extraterrestrial brothers, dealers of...
This was further expanded upon in 1976, when the album The Clones of Dr. Funkenstein introduced the titular Dr. Funkenstein, also played by George Clinton, a benevolent mad scientist dedicated to experimenting with funk music. During Parliament and P-Funk concerts, the characters would come to life through elaborate costumes, set decorations, and props.
Ooh, how about them Funkadelics?
One of these was a scale model of the Mothership, which would land on the stage and Dr. Funkenstein would emerge from within. Starchild and Dr. Funkenstein's adventures would finally be realized in 1977 with the album Funkenteleki vs. the Placebo Syndrome. Funkenteleki is a concept album focusing on Dr. Funkenstein returning to Earth's America, only to find a masked villain named Sir Nose devoid of funk, a play on Cyrano de Bergerac, has brainwashed the population into mundanity and funklessness. For the first time, the Parliament characters were rendered as cartoon characters, as penned by Detroit artist Overton Lloyd. Lloyd adapted Clinton's character designs into an 8-page comic book that was built into the original LP sleeve. This comic portrayed the duel between Starchild and Sir Nose, which is alluded to in the album's fourth track, Funkenteleki. In late 1977 through 1978, Parliament went on their Flashlight Tour, which opened concerts in a new elaborate way, a pre-show cartoon depicting the album's storyline. It also had additional scenes referencing the album's prior and after, Mothership Connection and Motor Booty Affair. Some footage from this cartoon was reused for the album's television advertisement. From these clearer glimpses, we could see the cartoon was mostly traditional cell animation and also seemed to have extra effects by Scanimate, which was an early form of computer animation that also allowed for light and color effects. Before each concert, the film was projected onto the wall behind the stage. While the TV ads just used the album's dialogue and music, the live show made use of a system of mini-Moog synthesizers to play original dialogue tracks and the bass line from the album's sixth track, Flashlight. The thing is, this pre-show cartoon has never been officially released in full. The only footage we have at this time comes from a Japanese bootleg concert tape. This tape, 1978 Flashlight Tour, seems to have been released only in Japan by Blues Interactions Incorporated sometime during the 1990s. It doesn't appear to be officially shot either. There are points during the footage when the camera dips down as if the person filming is trying to hide their equipment from concert security. This footage is also only available subtitled in Japanese, and its translation is not entirely accurate. For example, Sir Nose's iconic line, "I will never dance," was translated as "dancing is shit." There may be at least 2 more Parliament concert cartoons, ones we know even less about. Overton Lloyd's collaborations with Parliament increased significantly with their next album, Motor Booty Affair, which had a fully illustrated LP sleeve and a cardboard diorama kit featuring Lloyd and Clinton's characters. The album after that, Glory Howla Stupid, also had an elaborate 3-page comic book built into its sleeve, and both of these albums were also advertised on TV with animated ads. Glory Howla Stupid had at least 2 advertisements, a short and a long version, that aired on TV and on the radio. The audio exists for the long version, but if these extra few seconds of dialogue were ever animated, then they're currently completely lost. There definitely seem to be missing scenes and missing dialogue. For example, there's this shot where Snasty No-Nose is addressing the viewer, but the footage is overlaid with narration, and seems to have been looped to extend its runtime. So what's keeping these cartoons sealed? I can think of several reasons. The main one is that the P-Funk cartoons could be tied up with some sort of copyright issues. In the years since the cartoons were made, Parliament's label, Casablanca Record and Film Works, was financed by Warner Music, later partially owned by Polygram, then merged with Mercury Records, and then later absorbed into the Universal Music Group Corporation. There could be some extremely complicated legal issues keeping the cartoons out of reach. The copyright holders may also have assumed there's a lack of consumer interest just due to how old the cartoons are. They were made for and primarily intended only for concert screenings. If the reels still exist, they are likely in the hands of Casablanca Records representatives or one of the band members. Finally, to a smaller degree, part of at least one of the cartoons hasn't aged well. During the Flashlight Tour cartoon, we get a glimpse at some anti-Funkenstein propaganda that Sir Nose Devoid of Funk has set up, one of these being a banner that reads, "Funkenstein is a This is insensitive, sure, but it was a more common insult during the 1970s. Not just limited to LGBT+ men, it was used in a similar manner to today's insults of pussy or wimp.
Get this out of here.
Still though, I would hope that that shot wouldn't be censored during any potential modern re-releases. It's being said by the villain after all, and pop culture and language have just changed dramatically over the past 45 years. Who knows what words we casually use today will mean something totally different in 45 years. The P-Funk cartoons are highly worth recovering for a number of reasons. For one, these short films are some of the earliest all-black cartoons ever made in America. The only black cartoons before this were Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, and the TV series about the Jackson 5 and the Harlem Globetrotters. The P-Funk cartoons may be far more obscure in comparison, but it's important to preserve them as a piece of African American pop culture history. As well, the P-Funk cartoons are just really cool as independent animations. They were made to bring to life some of the best funk albums ever made, and everything about the character designs and animations makes me want to see more. And I know I'm not the only person who feels this way. If you go into the comments of any YouTube upload of the Parliament album commercials, you're bound to see many commenters feeling nostalgic about the animation or wishing they could see more of it too. Now, could these ever resurface? I think it's likely. While the films are almost 50 years old now, there's so many ways that the films could have been properly preserved somewhere. Whether as a better quality concert recording in Casablanca Records storage or in the hands of one of the original band members. I'd be worried about what condition the Flashlight Tour cartoon's dialogue is in though, since keyboardist Bernie Worrell has been on record saying that the cartoon's audio tracks were being played through 3 mini-moogs at the same time. Then again, this audio could have been preserved on separate tapes. In addition, some of the main contributors to the P-Funk cartoons are still around today. Overton Lloyd is active online and still produces art to this day. George Clinton continues to produce music and art too. Some of you may have actually heard him in one of his most recent roles as King Quincy in Trolls World Tour.
Best of all, being able to play a cartoon character is something I've always wanted to do.
Must be why he's so good looking. Was that a dad joke?
Another reason I'm hopeful that the cartoons will resurface is that the early Parliament albums have started being re-released through Universal Music's side label, Urban Legends. There don't seem to be plans to release any sort of reproductions of the 1977 through 79 albums, but it could be announced one day. These releases mean that at least some of the group's original recordings and resources have been properly preserved, and in my opinion, this is a really good sign that the P-Funk cartoons may eventually return to the light of day. And speaking as both a media collector and a Parliament fan, I really hope they do.